Tell me, do your passwords look like this? If so, stick around. I'll give you my tips on how to better secure your passwords. Creating accounts today can be frustrating. Companies want more complex passwords. First it was 6, then it was 8, 12, and so on and so forth, characters long. They want numbers, symbols, non-dictionary words. They want multiple methods to sign in. And I get that could be frustrating and confusing and irritating for a lot of people. As password requirements get more complex, I find people are gonna resort back to easier passwords and reusing passwords and trying to enter accounts in a less secure way despite more security requirements for that login. So you'll be surprised about how many people use very unsecure passwords for accounts. For example, back in 2012, LinkedIn got hacked and they leaked all the passwords for users. So the top 3 passwords for LinkedIn, the first one was 123456, as the requirements back then were 6 characters. The second one was LinkedIn. That was a, I guess, easy one to remember. That one was just password. It's not very uncommon for people to jump over the security hurdle that people put in place, that companies put in place to better secure accounts with easy to remember, easy to use password scheme to their account. If you have the same password for all accounts, or if you reuse passwords, or if you have the same kind of method for getting into accounts, once an individual account, say you have an account for Chipotle and you use your Chipotle account password as the same as your banking account, if and when Chipotle gets breached, now that password is out. Once that combination is out, they get sold and distributed around the dark web. Hackers will use this bank of passwords and usernames and then try it on all accounts with that username. They'll try Facebook, LinkedIn, Chipotle, bank accounts, whatever it may be. They'll use that and see what they can get in with instead of just trying every password for one account. Now I use Chipotle as an example because last year I had my credit card information leaked and I ended up buying someone in California $60 worth of Chipotle. Still mad about it. Not too mad because, I mean, it's Chipotle, so they had good taste at least. Anyway, so other ways hackers can get into accounts, as I said before. One was getting banks of passwords from the dark web that are sold online. Big databases of username and passwords that have been breached from other companies. It's called credential harvesting. A second way is just brute force attacks. Brute forcing is simply just trying every combination possible within a specified parameter. Similar to brute force, it's dictionary attacks. This is using dictionary words that are available online. They can run these through the brute force programs and now use, instead of just numbers, they can use actual words. Another way hackers are gaining password information from users just through phishing emails. A phishing email is just a malicious email sent by a hacker trying to gain information using various different ways. In a credential way, they will create a fake web page, fake domain that resembles, for example, they'll create a Facebook web page that has the same setup as the regular Facebook. They'll have the login, the password, and then they'll send you an email with that link. Go into the malicious site saying someone's tried to get into your account, click here to log in and reset your password, and that will redirect the user to the fake web page that will say username and password. The user will type it in, that information will get sent to the hacker, and then what will typically happen is that page will now resend them to the actual Facebook login. So to the user, it just looks like there was a blip in the connection, something didn't go through. Now they have to retype it and go again, and then they'll get sent to the actual Facebook page. So that's another way that hackers are now gaining information. So how do you prevent from these kind of attacks? How do you make your passwords more secure where you're not going to fall victim to these kind of methods? Well, the first one with the brute force and the dictionary attacks is not to use a series of numbers or a word as your password. The second one with credential harvesting is not to reuse passwords across all accounts. So by not reusing all passwords, if one account gets breached, all you'll do is just go change that one account and all your other accounts are now secure using different passwords, and that's not affected by that one breach. So that way, credential harvesting, if someone does get your Chipotle account, for example, they are just going to have access to that Chipotle account. You'll be able to go to your Chipotle, change that information, and then that account is now re-secure. Someone can't re-log in, as now that password that has been breached is invalid and useless, and all your other accounts is still secure because they're all different passwords. Best way to not fall victim to a phishing email is to firstly not click on links within emails, especially ones that you can't authenticate that someone actually genuinely sent it. If it's something from a friend, a family member, or a boss, you can quickly hit them up and be like, hey, did you send me this? Cool, open it, move on. But if it's from a company, your Facebook, your LinkedIn, or your banking, for example, if they send you a link saying click here, don't click there. Go to the fresh browser, open up that account, and then do what you need to do. be it change your password, make sure everything looks okay, make sure everything is how you left it. So after understanding more as to why reusing passwords or using weak passwords can lead to some very bad consequences and outcomes for the end user, how do you come up with better passwords? How do you create passwords? What's the best kind of passwords to use? Passphrases are great. They're not dictionary. You can separate them with hyphens. You can remember stories, song lyrics, memories that you've had as a child, and you can string them together to make a passphrase. So for example, I'm a big AC/DC fan, so I would use AC/DC hyphen highway hyphen to hyphen hell, and then I would mix up the numbers, special characters all within that password to make it a little bit more complex. So another way to do it is to create a formula. Different formulas people use, feel free to look them up online. I'm sure there's different ones that people will relate to, but one way I was taught was to think of a childhood memory and then to tailor a password around that. For example, I used to go to Spain on vacation as a kid, so I would think of Spain as a great vacation, but then I can change that to Spain equals great fun, and then again change up the characters, the letters, so I have the base formula, and then I'll remember the special characters and the numbers that I've also put in there to substitute I for 1, S for $, great, and then put the at within the great. So that would be the base for my formula. So for Facebook, for example, I would have Spain equals great fun as my base, and then I would use capital F, A, C3, capital B, and then a series of numbers. And then I would do that for other accounts. My LinkedIn, I would do like a capital L, INK, capital D, and then series of numbers as well. So that's a good way to do it. In my opinion, it's not the best way to do it. It's definitely a lot better than using basic passwords and using dictionary passwords or reusing very weak passwords, as this is a lot more of a complex way. People are taking a little bit more time to think about their password security and to create a formula to better secure each account, and also each account will be unique, so if one gets leaked, not all of them will. However, the reason I say it's not the most secure way is because if a password gets leaked, for example your Facebook one, and they see Spain equals great fun, and then they see the Facebook and then the number, someone who is motivated to get into your account, if they gain access to a password, for example if they fooled you with a phishing email and they got into your Facebook because you provided it to them, yes, your other accounts aren't going to be compromised immediately because that password is unique to Facebook. However, if someone read that password and saw Spain equals great fun, and then they could make out the formula at the end of Facebook, in my head I'm going to start trying, well, let's see if I can get to the LinkedIn, or if I can get into the iCloud account, and then I'll use different formulas in my head that I could use to get into the iCloud account or the LinkedIn. I would try a series of different passwords. However, it's a much better way than using a simple weak password for all accounts. So definitely, if this is something that is helpful to you, create your own formula. Make it personal so it's easy to remember, but don't make it too personal to where it's easy to guess. Another way to create passwords is to just use a password generator. If you have a password manager, they will have password generators in them. However, if you don't have a password manager, there's free tools online that you can go on, generate a password. You can set parameters to characters, passphrases, special characters, so on and so forth, and then that will create a password for you, which is another way. And if you want random secure passwords, because the more random and the more complex, the more secure the password is going to be. Unless you have insane IQ or a crazy memory, you're not going to remember all these complex passwords for each account. My opinion is to use a password manager. I personally use Nord. There's also several other leading password managers out there. Some offer free services, some are paid. Nord is a paid one, but in my opinion it's a great one. I've used it for years now. Using password managers, they'll do several things. First one is they'll give you access to password generators where you can create long, complex, random passwords for all accounts. They'll also have a browser extension. As you're logging into a new account, you'll be able to click on the login tab, and then the password manager will go ahead and give you the password for that account. Also, they'll do deep web monitoring. So if a password got leaked, they'll be able to show you the database breach, show you the password that was leaked, and then you can go ahead and change that account. Now there is the typical questions with password managers are, well, if that gets leaked, all your passwords are leaked. Yes, in theory. However, this is no different to if you store all your passwords in a notebook and keep the notebook in a safe. Well, if someone gets access to the safe, then all your passwords are leaked. It's just a matter of what steps you put in place to prevent someone from getting into the account, or what steps you put in place to stop someone getting into your safe. With password managers, you'll use two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. For example, to log into my password manager, I'll be able to use my Face ID to authenticate, and then I'll be able to type in that password to get in, so that's 2 steps. For my PC, for example, I'll get an authentication notification, and I'll use the authentication app, and that'll come up with a unique 6-character key that regenerates, and then you'll use that unique key coupled with your password to get access. Now with your master password, I do recommend changing that one every 6 months. Is definitely a good practice to have. Now with a lot of password managers, they'll use a zero trust policy, so they won't store passwords on file. So even if they do get breached, there's no way anyone can have access to your passwords. As I said before, some people maybe not trust password managers. No shade, but typically the older generation, in my experience, kind of have a little bit more skepticism towards password managers, and rightly so. I mean, they are online. In my opinion, anything online can be accessed. It's just a matter of how and time and also skill set. So if you want to store your passwords in a notebook, make sure it's not one of those that say my passwords on the front. You know, maybe use some discretion when choosing a notebook to store those passwords. And if you do store it, make sure you're aware of the people around you when securing that password. You know, if you have a safe, make sure it's not just a simple key lock safe where someone can just pick the lock. Make sure, you know, maybe it's a number combination, maybe it's a fingerprint, or maybe it's a combination of both. So just make sure if you're investing in a safe, make sure it's gonna do what it's meant to do and keep the content safe. So other best practices I suggest when entering passwords is just to be aware of your surroundings. Typical way someone gains access to your password or an account is just by looking over your shoulder and reading the information you put in. So if you're in a public place, make sure that no one's really behind you if you're typing it in. I've been in situations where I've sat behind someone and I've seen them log into their account. Personally, you know, I'm not trying to get into their account, but if I was trying to gain access, they just made it very easy for me to access their account because they've just given me the password. You don't have to be paranoid. You don't have to be Edward Snowden putting the sheet over his head, typing them in each time he does it. However, having some kind of paranoia that every time you log in, just to make sure that no one's behind you, no one's looking over your shoulder, no one's, you know, there's not a camera pointing right at your phone where someone could see it. To finalize, my main tips are going to be to not reuse any passwords. It's to use a password manager or use the formula. And then to change the passwords every 6 months to a year is typically good hygiene for that one. And finally, also be aware of your surroundings. Just make sure you know who's around you, what's around you, and make sure that information that you're accessing, if it is sensitive, remains sensitive. That concludes my video on passwords. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please give it a like. I really do appreciate it. And if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to let me know any password strategies, ways you secure your passwords, or any password managers that you are enjoying, leave them in the comments down below. I'd love to hear, love to read them, reply to as many as I can. Thank you again for watching. My name is Sam, and this is Cyber Insecure.